as we were leaving, I felt like God put it on my heart to ask. Like he said, he's asking about their laundry. So I said, hey, I got a weird question for you. How do you guys do your laundry? And so they were doing their laundry in the creek that was, 50 to 100 yards behind where their campsite was. And then they would dry their clothes on either a fence post or a tree or a tent stake or whatever. And I asked them if there was a mobile laundry that could kind of meet you closer to where you're at. Would you utilize that? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. So that kind of began my investigation, looking into if this is something that is even possible.
Welcome to Second Act Stories, a podcast that looks at people who've made major life and career changes and are pursuing more rewarding lives in a second act. I'm your host, Andy Levine.
And I'm Scott Merritt, Andy's co-host today. So Andy, obviously this is your episode, and we are about to hear the story of a former police officer named Wade Milyard. What's Wade's second act?
So at the age of 44, Wade took early retirement from the Frederick, Maryland Police Department after nearly 20 years on the force. And he started an unusual nonprofit called Fresh Step Laundry.
Laundry. So a laundromat or like a laundry service? What is Fresh Step Laundry?
All right, here's an interesting twist here. So Fresh Step Laundry is a mobile laundry service for homeless men and women in his community. So he is basically doing the laundry for people who don't have any access or funds to do their own laundry.
Okay, this is way more meaningful than I would have thought. So you've got my attention. Let's hear about Wade and his second act with Fresh Step Laundry.
I want to start with your background. Where'd you grow up, family life, that kind of thing? Just give us a little quick sketch of your early years.
Sure. I grew up in Walkersville, Maryland, and graduated high school in 98. And 2001, joined the U.S. Coast Guard. And I was a gunner's mate there until 2005 when my enlistment was up. And when that was over, I went to the police academy here at Frederick City.
So talk about your first act as a police officer. So what drew you to law enforcement?
My grandfather was really kind of a motivator to that. He was a police officer at Fort Detrick and kind of motivated me to do that. While I was down in Texas, I actually went to night school to get my peace officer certification with the intention of staying in Galveston County and being a police officer down there, but ultimately decided to come back home and stay here in Frederick. And I think that was the right choice for sure.
And was there something that drew you to police work?
Honestly, I did ride-alongs with the state police and the city police here locally when I was younger. And I just really enjoyed all of it, all the aspects of it, knowing that you were helping people. And that sounds like a corny answer, but you really are. I was watching them make a difference.
So I think you said 2006 you joined the Frederick Police Department?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You're like 25 years old, something like that?
Yep.
What was that like?
So I was in patrol my entire career. The way that our department worked is our K-9 unit, most of them at the time were attached to the patrol division. And so we were basically, each handler was assigned to a patrol squad. And so once I got my first dog, Joker, I was assigned to a squad and just worked day evenings shift like everybody else. And the cool thing about it was that I still got to do regular police work, but I also got to go to the higher priority calls where the dog might be utilized to apprehend somebody. So I did that for the rest of my career from 2011 until I retired.
What did you find most rewarding about police work?
Seeing the community change, even if it was just a small section, like a family or a person, seeing somebody's life turn around, because of maybe something that we did as officers on the scene.
Talk about your decision to retire and to leave the police force.
I pretty much knew that I was ready to do something different. K-9's a young man's game.
Okay.
Yeah, the dogs are pretty rough on you. You get into your 40s and you feel the pulls and the jerks a little bit harder than you did when you were 25.
Okay.
I was ready to do something different.
And how did you start to think about what that might be?
So when you're about 2 years out from retiring, everybody's question to you is, "Hey, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?" Because I made it pretty clear that I was ready to go.
And you're in your like mid 40s at this point.
I was
right?
I was 44 when I retired.
Okay.
And I never really had an answer. I knew I was finished with my career there. Frederick Police Department was always really good to me. But I knew I was done, and I just didn't have an answer for him.
A path started to take form one day when Wade and his partner were called to a domestic dispute with a homeless couple living in a tent.
Police dispatch sent me to this dispute. So me and my partner went down to that location and handled the call. As we were leaving, I felt like God put it on my heart to ask. Like he said, he's asking about their laundry. So I said, "Hey, I got a weird question for you. How do you guys do your laundry?" And so they were doing their laundry in the creek that was, 50 to 100 yards behind where their campsite was. And then they would dry their clothes on either a fence post or a tree or a tent stake or whatever. And I asked them if there was a mobile laundry that could kind of meet you closer to where you're at. Would you utilize that? And they were like, "Yeah, absolutely." So that kind of began my investigation, looking into if this is something that is even possible.
Did you find other people that were doing this?
The big name in it is Laundry Truck LA, and they've done close to 700,000 pounds of laundry. I think they started in 2017. They're up to 5 purpose-built trailers to serve the Los Angeles area. I had a Zoom meeting with probably 4 or 5 of their employees and the founder, and they talked to me for a little over an hour and just shooting questions at them and like, "How do you handle this?" and "How do you recommend doing that?" And it was really, really good. They kind of solidified how we were going to do things here in Frederick.
Did you talk to anyone locally here? I mean, even like your spouse, did you say, "I've got this crazy idea"?
Oh, yeah.
And how did those conversations go?
Paige was the first one I talked to about it. Okay, so to be fair, she had dealt with a lot of my crazy ideas, and she
sounds
always
very familiar.
She always supported me.
Okay.
But when I told her this, she was even more on board, and she's like, "I really think we should look into it and pursue it." And to be honest with you, there were times before I even retired where I had some doubts, and I was like, "Is this even something that I know how to do? Is this above my education level, or what?" What a lot of questions that you might have. Mm-hmm. And every single time, and I'm not kidding, it felt like God would put something up in front of me, like, "Keep doing it, keep on the right path." And so that just reaffirmed that I was going in the right direction.
So mobile laundry service, there is the big barrier of you need a large truck.
Yes.
You need washing machines. You need dryers. How did you pull all that off? I mean, that sounds like a lot of money and a lot of effort.
So I was blessed. When I retired, there was a transit style bus that you would take from like a parking spot to the airport. Mm-hmm. So we had one of those that was 30 years old. We had used it to take kids to different events and stuff like that through the police department. And I asked the chief, I was like, "Hey, that thing's been sitting down at the parking lot for a couple years. Would you consider donating that to my nonprofit?" And he didn't hesitate. He was like, "Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it." So I retired in January. End of January, I took possession of the bus and started to rip everything out, putting new floors down and welding some metal pieces into it to get it up to par, and then also upfit it into what it is today. Yeah.
Wade and his team of volunteers affectionately call the bus Leaky Lucy. Wade outfitted the vehicle with 3 front-load washers and 3 front-load dryers. The overall cost of renovating Lucy was about $18,000. And how does this work? When you go somewhere, do you hook up to a water source and a discharge source? How do you make this work?
Sure. We only need a city water spigot where we show up. I bring the hoses, and then we just hook right into that. And then the water runs in, goes into the water heater or into the cold water lines and goes through the machines. And then I store the water in a 250-gallon gray water tank.
Okay.
And then usually I discharge that water while I'm on site because, depending on how many people we have, our biggest day we had 17 loads of laundry in a day, and that's a lot for 3 machines.
Give us an idea of a typical day when you are providing services.
Sure.
What happens?
Yeah, so I usually get to the location around 8 o'clock in the morning on a normal day and set up, and that takes about 15 to 20 minutes. Bringing the hose out, hooking that up, leveling the truck, and then getting my generators going, setting up the table to accept laundry and the baskets. And then my volunteers usually show up around 8:30.
Okay.
And we just get rocking. So 8:30 until 11 is our normal business, drop-off time. So they can drop off until 11. And then after that, we just stay there on site until everything's done.
Okay.
And we fold it and put it in a bag with their name on it and get it back to them.
Okay.
And so then basically what we do is once the basket has your clothes in it, we write your name on it and then on a piece of tape. And then that piece of tape follows that basket from there to the machine, to the dryer, and then over to the folding table so that there's always one person's things out at a time.
What has been the response of your clients and unhoused men and women that you've been helping? What have they said?
Clients are, they're great. Hugs. I get hugs all the time. I can give you 2 examples. One young lady, I did her laundry, and she came back to pick it up a couple hours later, and she said, I want to thank you guys for doing my laundry because I was just so motivated. I went back to the place that she was staying. She's like, I went back there and I swept up and cleaned up, and now I get to come back to clean clothes, and it really made a difference in my day. And so big old hug, some prayer, and she was happy. And then the other story that kind of sticks out was there was a couple who, when I first started in September of 25, they were at the time living in a tent and trying to get through life. And then all of a sudden, maybe a couple of months later, they weren't there anymore. And, being the police, I automatically thought, oh man, something bad happened or, whatever. But then I started asking around. They were able to save enough money to get into a better location. And so that was cool. But I got a phone call from them. One day I was there doing laundry, and they came out and were like, Wade, you got a phone call. And I was like, oh, I didn't know I was taking phone calls here. So I went inside, and it was them. And they just were thanking Fresh Step for helping them out and getting them into a situation where they could be better off. And they wanted to announce that, they were having a little girl. And that really, it meant a lot to me that they took the time out of their day to thank us and thank Fresh Step for, helping.
What does your service do for the men and women of Frederick who are homeless?
Self-confidence is the biggest help. When I was looking into starting this, one of the gentlemen I spoke with told me that the reason he didn't even try to get a job is because that he knew that his clothes were dirty and that they smelled. And so that was kind of another push for me. Like and that's kind of where Fresh Step came from, the name. If we can give them a fresh step with clean clothes, maybe that will give them the motivation, the confidence to go for a job, or even just stay clean that day. Because, not all unhoused are in the same box. While I'm talking about that, I think what I'd like to remind people is that to look at the unhoused as you're passing them on the street, it's easy for somebody to say, oh, look at them. And, why don't they put themselves together? Why don't they do this? Well, good for you, because you have no idea what they're going through, what got them to where they are. And we are all of us, no matter how comfortable we are in life, we are all one day away or one incident away from possibly going down that path. So I just like to remind people that they're there in that spot. Most of them aren't proud of it, and most of them are working to get out of it, and they're doing the best that they can.
Are there skills you developed as a police officer that have played out well in managing this nonprofit?
I think just to being able to communicate with different types of people.
Okay.
If you see me, I'm not a big guy, so I learned to use my words very well, and I can relate with a lot of people. So even if I'm never been in the same situation as them, I can empathize.
Wade has plans to expand Fresh Step Laundry and add a second truck that would serve the needs of public school students in Frederick County who are homeless.
If they're coming into school in dirty clothes or not bathed, how do we expect them to be able to focus on school and their education? If Fresh Step can make a difference with their laundry and give them clean clothes and a little more self-respect, and they don't have to come to school worried about somebody making fun of them or picking on them because of the way that their clothes look, that's only going to help them learn, and that's only going to help them do better in life. So if we can get it into the foundation years and try to help alleviate some of that stress, only good things can come from that.
What advice would you give to someone who maybe has been doing a stable job like you were as a police officer for a number of years? What advice would you give them if they're interested in starting a nonprofit?
First and foremost, I would say pray. I would say, but I mean that in both ways. Pray on it, really open yourself up to listening to where you think God wants you to be. And then go for it. Now, it's a little easier for me to say that because I was retiring. I didn't quit my job in the middle of it and just go off on this path. So it was a little easier choice. Prepare yourself for a lot of questions and be very open to advice from other people who are in that space. I found here in Frederick and, other places, so many people who are in this nonprofit business, they're so open to helping you out.
I have two final questions for you.
Okay.
Number one, for any listeners who are interested in helping your organization, how can they get in touch with you and how can they help you financially?
Sure. So if you would like to contact me, Wade at freshsteplaundry.com. Wade is W-A-D-E. There's no Y in it. And if you'd like to make a donation, freshsteplaundry.com. There's a link on the front page, and you can make a small monthly donation, or you can make just a one-time donation, however you'd like to help out. That would be greatly appreciated. And that's going to go directly into the mission.
And the final question.
Yes, sir.
Who does the laundry in your household?
We split it. Easy question. So Paige does the washing and drying.
Okay.
And I'm in charge of folding and putting it away.
Okay.
And
that's a good division of labor.
To be totally fair, when it comes to the towels, They are the easiest to fold, but I don't put them away. She puts them away because I always put them in the wrong spot. So,
So 10 years ago, did you ever think you would be doing something like this?
No.
No. Okay.
Not even a little bit.
Andy, you always find these super inspirational, interesting stories, and this one hit me pretty hard because Wade is really solving a problem that nobody thinks about that often. You know, like the need for people to, you know, have this self-confidence that can really truly be brought on by, you know, just wearing clean clothes. You know, we don't even think about it, but you know, it's something that really impacts that community.
Yeah, when I heard about this story through some local news articles, it just struck me as, wow, this is a fantastic second act.
Yeah, it really truly is. So let's jump right into a couple of questions that I have. The first one is regarding the religious aspect of Wade's second act. So he was pretty clear that God guided him into this second act. And I feel like we probably have a couple of examples or at least one of prior guests who were also driven by the word of God.
The best example I can think of is Kathy Hying. I know you remember this episode. It was called Kathy and the Crankshafts.
Yeah.
Kathy started a car repair shop for the working poor in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And she very clearly was guided by God. In fact, there was one point where she said God said to her, "Hey, dumbass, I'm opening the door. Just walk through it." And I love that comment, "Hey, dumbass," because, you know, we rarely think of God communicating that way, but that's the way God communicated with her.
Well, that's why that episode wasn't just a regular episode, but it also wound up in our list of best of episodes. So,
Yeah, no, it was a great story.
yeah. So my second thought here is how first acts really do prepare you, whether you know it or not, prepare you for your second act. Wade was a cop, and being a cop, he had to interact, communicate with, and help solve problems for all walks of life. It's people who live in big mansions, but also homeless people. So he had this really deep background in working with and helping solve problems for, you know, the underprivileged people around. So he knew exactly how to do this, and it's just a matter of executing in a way that that gave him a little bit more purpose and meaning in life.
Yeah, very true. In fact, in the episode, he does comment about how being a cop made him a good communicator, as you're saying. It also allowed him to empathize with others, and I think that is really important in his new role running Fresh Step Laundry.
Absolutely. Well, at this point, I think it's probably time for us to wrap this one up and concentrate on what's coming next.
Sounds good. 3 things to share. Number 1, if you'd like to support Fresh Step Laundry, and we certainly hope you might, please visit their website. It's www.freshsteplaundry.com. There's a donate button on their page, and they certainly merit and deserve support. So we love to see people support their organization. Number 2, if you have someone you think we should interview, we'd love to hear from you. On our website, secondactstories.org, we have a button in the upper right-hand corner, Scott.
Upper right-hand corner.
Basically, okay, fill out an interview form. You're welcome to nominate someone you know. You're welcome to nominate yourself. But if there's someone you think there's a good story we could tell on the Second Act Stories podcast, we'd love to. Finally, if you have someone you know of who you think could benefit from the podcast, maybe someone who's unhappy in their job, someone looking for a new career, we'd love to see you refer them to the Second Act Stories podcast. Maybe they can find some inspiration to go about making a change after listening to the podcast.
Great. Well, we hope you'll keep listening. There are more Second Act Stories just around the corner.